this evening, and things continue to trend colder. We've been colder throughout the day. That cold air is nowhere to go. It's going to sit right over us, and that's increasing our ice threats, not just for northwest Arkansas, but into the river valley as well. We'll have a mix of just frozen precipitation starting about midday tomorrow. So we're going to be talking about impacts, timing, and how much accumulation you can expect. But another doozy of a storm's coming in as we're just trying to wrap up the month of February. If you guys have questions during this live stream, go ahead and submit those to us, and we'll be able to go through those as we work together trying to figure out what's going to happen with this storm setting up. We've already got several schools that have been canceling. We've got AMI Day, still kind of used to that. AMI Days going into tomorrow because we'll start the morning dry, but as this wintry weather moves in by about lunchtime or when recess would probably be, things are going to likely get slick, and then by the time the sun sets, it's going to get really slick western Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma. We're live right now on our 5 News website, on our app, on our YouTube channel, and on Facebook as well. We got to get a couple things ready to go, but I hope you guys have had a warm day. It's been cold. You guys trying to stay warm as that colder air has just been in here. That north wind has been relentless, and those clouds had a hard time breaking. We had a little bit of sun close to sunset, especially in the river valley from Fort Smith westbound specifically. But man, it's been cold. So if you have the 5 News app, get ready. Your phone's probably about to buzz here in a moment as we get some of our systems rolling. We want to talk about the latest updates, what we're seeing right now with the increased ice threat, and then also some of us may be so cold that we still don't get snow, but we get more sleet. And there's a big difference between sleet and ice. Ice is just a raindrop that once it hits the ground, hits something, it freezes and it glazes. That's what you notice on your car. Some of us might have noticed it earlier today. There's just a little bit of freezing drizzle, freezing fog on some vehicles. So you kind of get that, you pull the car handle, it gets kind of crusty. You kind of hear the ice cracks a little bit. Sleet is something different. Sleet means there's a little bit more cold air. And so you have that raindrop that refreezes into an ice pellet. It's almost as if it's a very small hailstone, but then you accumulate it kind of like grains of sand, and so it fills in all the nooks and cranny on the ground and on your car and just different crevices, but it doesn't provide as much of a slick base. So some of us will be getting a little bit more sleet. We're going to go through those maps with you this evening. Let me put a couple things here to the side and let's walk through. But so far, the ice threats have now dropped farther towards the south. Originally, the past couple of days, it looked mainly for northwest Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma, but we've already got that cold air that's just sitting there. And so we've got higher ice threats now coming into the river valley as well, east about Conway. We'll be taking a look at ice accumulation maps, but that bullseye right for the mountains. But notice how there's decent ice threats for both the river valley and in northwest Arkansas. We're going to go through all these coming up in here in a little bit. Let's talk about timing, though. Timing is key. So there's actually 2 waves coming in. There's 2 little low pressure systems that are going to be tracking through the flow with the jet stream. The first one's going to be a little bit colder. I'm trying to push this off to the side. The first one's going to be a little bit colder. That comes in tomorrow. Notice how the chances for precipitation are really low in the morning. As we're headed out the door, you think, it's just cloudy. There's nothing going on. Just wait. Later towards about the middle part of the day, 11 o'clock to noon, somewhere in there, watch for frozen precipitation moving in. In northwest Arkansas, a lot of it's going to be sleet. That's good. We don't want as much ice. Sleet, you got those little ice pellets falling around. In the river valley, though, our ice chances, the freezing rain chances, continue to go up. We're likely to have slick spots area-wide coming up for your Wednesday, and they'll really intensify into the afternoon and evening as just more of those bands just sit over us and try to ice things up area-wide. We may get a little bit of a break as you go into late Wednesday night and eventually into Thursday. Still some chances for a little bit of ice, but overall the accumulation totals will be a little bit lower, and that second wave moves in. But notice the difference in color. The second wave is going to be a little bit warmer. That means we're going to have probably more ice. In northwest Arkansas, we'll go from sleet back to ice, and in the river valley, we'll get a very cold rain with some ice at times. The forecast is complicated. Our terrain is complicated. Everyone's going to be getting something different, but this is our best guess, best idea, just as a general sense. What you get at your house will be a little bit different than even down the road. It really depends on ground temperatures and the precipitation rates and a bunch of different things. But a lot of folks have asked, how can we go from the warm weekend we just had to ice? Well, Today was your answer. Man, it was chilly. That cold front passed through. Well, now we've got the severe weather that we had yesterday. Now it's pressing into Mississippi and parts of western Tennessee, northern Alabama. That continues to chug along, but that cold air has wrapped in, and the gray color shows you those clouds. We were not able to break them up very much throughout the day, and so we just stayed cloudy and chilly. And so now our winter storm threats continue to go up as we go into this storm. That storm specifically is back towards the west. Doesn't look like much right now. It's in the Rockies where we don't have the greatest radar coverage, but once this thing gets into the plains, it's going to be able to tap into a little bit more Gulf moisture and then just kind of explode into more of that wintry weather for both Arkansas and Oklahoma. North Texas a little bit too, maybe even southern portions of Missouri as well. But right now, things are quiet. Things are good right now. It's just chilly area-wide. Winter storm warnings are now in effect for northwest Arkansas. Of course, that includes Benton County, Washington County, Carroll County, Madison County. In the River Valley, we've got winter storm warnings because of those ice threats from Johnson County and Franklin County, Sebastian County, Crawford County, and most of eastern Oklahoma is in a winter storm warning, including LaFleur. You get to Sequoia, Adair, and Delaware counties. We also got those ice threats coming in. But once you get probably just north of Delaware County into extreme northern Oklahoma, more dry pockets, and so the ice may not be as thick. They'll still get some ice towards Tulsa, but if you've got to head west to Tulsa, Highway 412, it's going to be slick. You're headed east on Highway 412 towards the Huntsville area. Madison County is going to get slick. I-40 all the way from Oklahoma City, basically to Little Rock, it's going to be slick. And then as you head south on US 71 into the River Valley too, it's also likely to get pretty slippery. All right, let's talk ice totals. Ice forecasting is the worst. We're talking with meteorologist Tyler Moore, meteorologist Michelle Trotter. Ice is the worst to forecast. We have a hard time to figure out just how much rain someone may get specifically, and you're going really, really close to the amount. But then you throw in the frozen part, because some of the water may not always freeze right away. Some of it may evaporate in a second, or it's just there's a lot of different complications here, and different surfaces accumulate different ice levels. It's just all over the place. But here's our best guess. We're thinking about 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of ice for most of us, anywhere from Greenwood, Paris, north into the Boston Mountains, and then north into northwest Arkansas. The bullseye itself will be in the mountains, though. It's likely to get very tricky on I-49 US 71, especially in the heart of Washington County. You get south of Fayetteville. As soon as you start to go up towards Greenland and West Fork, Winslow, the Bobby Hopper Tunnel is likely to get slick. More slick conditions as you head into eastern Oklahoma, even stretching into parts of Sequoia County, higher ice threats. And we have that 0.4 inches, so we're basically right around a 1/2 inch or maybe even more, and then those threats continue as you head towards Mountain Home and Harrison, north central Arkansas. In the River Valley, we're kind of in between, maybe 2/10 of an inch of ice, 3/10 of an inch of ice. The more ice you get, the higher chance you're going to have of power outages. The good news is it's not going to be very windy, I think, during this event. When you've got ice and wind, then you're asking all these frozen tree limbs to then try to break and move in power lines, and then you get even more power outages. But it's likely the wind's going to be pretty light, but we could get a good glaze, even as far south as parts of Logan County and Scott County, about 1/10 of an inch of ice, 2/10 once you get closer to Poteau, and then on the other side of Kavanaugh Hill towards Bacoshi, about 3/10 of an inch of ice. In northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville, we're right in there in the mix, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of ice or so, stretching north right into Bentonville. Now notice how the ice threat starts to go down the farther north you go. There are 2 reasons for that. Number 1, there may be some pockets of drier air, and so at times the ice may stop temporarily, especially in Benton County and McDonald County in southwest Missouri, and then it picks up again. The other reason why, the second reason, is because it's going to be even colder the farther north you go. We may not only just get ice, but we may get sleet. We're going to take a look at those maps here in a moment. This is just talking about the clear ice that you're probably going to see on your mailbox, on your gutters, on your vehicles, and then eventually trying to accumulate on roads, bridges, overpasses too. Likely to get really slick the next couple of days. But how does this compare to our other ice storms that we've had in the past? We still have PTSD from that 2009 storm in northwest Arkansas. And in the River Valley all the way back to 2000, where it was really bad. We've had some others, but 2000 was really bad. Let's compare. In northwest Arkansas, for now, we're talking about somewhere between 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of ice. I think we're going to lean towards the 1/2 inch of ice, to be honest, especially in Washington County, Benton County, Madison County. Back in 2009, we were closer to the 1.5 inch mark. to even 2 inches. At that point, it doesn't really matter how much you add, it's all bad. Well, we were without power for a week or so for a lot of us. We're a little bit farther down the scale. We're about a medium threat. And so generally when we get about a ½ inch of ice, we get scattered power outages for about 24 hours, maybe up to 2 days, just depending on how quickly crews can get back out and work on those scenes. Especially in rural areas, the power outages will be a little bit higher. And then roads, of course, becoming slick and bridges becoming very dangerous with this ice. In the river valley, it depends on where you live. Remember that map was all over the place. If you want to have another refresher on these maps, just go to 5newsonline.com. Right on the front page, first thing you click is going to be a huge article with all the information right there that you can continually access. We'll continually update that, so just keep refreshing the page if you want the latest information. We'll be updating that every few hours. But in the river valley, some of us around Fort Smith, maybe a ½ inch of ice, maybe closer to ½ inch of ice in Sequoyah County. But then you head south to Boonville and Paris, maybe a little bit farther down the scale. But in general, I think in the river valley, we're gonna get probably isolated power outages. The farther north you live into the foothills of the Boston Mountains, so we're talking about northern Crawford County, northern Franklin County, northern Johnson County, Sequoyah County, maybe even parts of LaFleur County too, and around Kavanaugh Hill. Isolated power outages are likely, but area-wide the roads are going to become slick and bridges becoming slick too. Now let's talk about sleet. It's just one thing after another. You know when your kid comes home from school and they tell you a story and it's just, and this happened, and then this, and then this, and then this. This is what it feels like with this forecast. There's just so many different variables. We're trying to just walk through those. Sleet, remember, it bounces. Ice glazes. In northwest Arkansas, we may get closer to an inch of sleet. Some of us maybe even close to 2 inches of sleet. But from the mountains north, sleet is going to really knock down some of the highest ice totals. In the river valley, you've got to have colder air to produce sleet. So you have no cold air for rain, a little bit of cold air for ice, more cold air for sleet, and a bunch of cold air for snow. We're kind of in that middle between ice and sleet. So things are going to be wonky throughout this storm, but maybe just a trace of some sleet. I think in the river valley, we're going to get more of that rain and ice. It's going to get slick. Farther north towards the mountains, maybe about a ½ inch of some of that sleet. Of course, you got to give and take on some of these numbers. They're going to be moving around throughout this storm, and everyone's going to get something different. This is our best guess as we look forward. Once again, if you have some questions, let me know where you guys are. A lot of folks have been asking, hey, I've got to travel. What the roads will look like, and so we're doing our best guess there. We'll try to answer some of those in just a moment, but here's a rundown of the travel impacts that we can expect. Tomorrow morning, headed out the door, you're fine. It's going to be cloudy. Maybe a couple breaks of sun right at sunrise, but then the clouds will be right here. It's going to be chilly. That north wind out there about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Not super breezy, but just enough to remind you it's still winter. By the time we get to 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock, just before that noon hour, we'll see the onset of some of these frozen bands of precipitation moving in. However, normally at first, we don't get really slick. It takes a couple hours of the precipitation to really do that. And, of course, RDOT's been working hard trying to get some salt on the roads. We're not getting this, a band of rain first to wash everything away. So hopefully there's some, some effects with the ice and whatever they've been putting on the roads this evening and into tomorrow that will help kind of reduce the impact temporarily. But eventually the weather will win. But by, I think, Wednesday afternoon and towards the sunset, we'll starting to get a little bit slick. But then after sunset Wednesday night, it's going to be very difficult. We're going to be icy north, south, east, west. As you go into Thursday, will remain icy. That just ice and sleet will continue to fall. And then by Thursday night, we'll start to wrap things up. It may not be precipitating anymore, but we'll still be cold. When the sun sets Thursday night, there's not much to freeze to melt the roads. It will just stay frozen. In fact, maybe it will even refreeze a little bit with cold temperatures Thursday night. You've got to wait towards Friday morning. Finally, when that sun comes out, we'll try to melt some stuff. But anywhere from Wednesday afternoon through Thursday, it's going to be slick. Here's a look at FUTURECAST. This evening, things are quiet. Things are cold, though. We've been sitting, most of us, next to or below freezing. To be honest, most of the day has been that way. But even at this hour, we're still below freezing. Waking up tomorrow morning, likely to remain below freezing, and then that first wave of precipitation moves on in. Notice the time, too. This is 12 o'clock. This is noon on Wednesday. The sleet and ice are here. They'll continue into the afternoon. Notice by about 6, 7, 8 o'clock, the bands get a little bit lighter. But notice we've got a mix of ice and sleet everywhere. Now, portions of the southern River Valley, rain will mix in at times. And so that's why we only have a winter weather advisory for Logan County and Scott County, because we'll be a little bit warmer. But you head closer to I-40, we've got better chances for more of that ice. Things take a little bit of a break overnight. This is Wednesday at midnight going into Thursday. Have a little bit of a break, still some freezing mist out there. Guys, it's gonna be nasty. But then waking up for Thursday morning, for that morning commute, this wave a little bit warmer. Notice how the rain is maybe inching a little bit farther north. We'll have to watch that. And that may reduce some of our ice totals at times, but the ice is not gonna stop in northwest Arkansas on that sleet. And that'll continue into the afternoon. Notice the time, this is noon by Thursday. We'll finally be wrapping things up, drying things out. That's why we have a red weather alert for both Wednesday and Thursday. The ice coming in by midday, give or take a couple hours. Some of us may start as early as maybe even 9, 10 o'clock, just the very early fringes of those bands coming in. But I really think by about 11, most of us are in the icy, sleety mess that's gonna be across northwest Arkansas. And that'll continue right into Thursday too. That's why we still have that weather alert. Thank goodness for Friday. We're gonna get above freezing slightly. Wish we could get this temperature a little bit warmer, but it's gonna be hard to do. We'll have mostly sunny skies to try to melt some of this ice. By Saturday in the morning, before we get to 44, there could be a stray flurry in the morning. We're not talking about many impacts from that, but then we're much warmer as we head into next week. Monday, this is the last day of February, so I tell you what, February is trying to end on a pretty crazy note. In the River Valley, we've got red weather alerts just as well. In fact, the ice threats continue to go up in the River Valley as things just look colder. Probably 35 for the high tomorrow. We'll be right in that sweet spot in order to get a mix of ice and sleet. Just a nasty wintry mix coming in. That lasts through Thursday. Friday, we'll get in the mid-40s. We'll probably melt things faster in the River Valley with more of that sun and temperatures being a little bit more well above freezing. In the morning Saturday, when that quick system moves in, towards northwest Arkansas, they may get a flurry, but I think in the River Valley, it'll just be a couple raindrops. We'll be a little bit warmer as we start this weekend. But then once that passes through, we're back into the 50s, just trying to melt everything away. So that's a mouthful. We gotta take a break, right? What we're expecting is just things to get slick. We're talking numbers, but we really want to focus on the impacts. Numbers will change, but the impacts will generally be the same. Walking out your door tomorrow, things are going to be dry, but then we're going to turn slick. First things that ice over are your mailbox, your gutters, your vehicle, anything that's cold outside, maybe a bird feeder that has, a metal surface, anything that can get colder. And then eventually your driveway, your sidewalk, roads, bridges, they'll start to get slick too. By the time we're waking up Thursday morning, headed out the door, you're gonna notice as soon as you get out your front door, it's likely to be slick all the way to the driveway. Your vehicle's probably gonna be iced over still, and the road itself will have some ice too. We're still not talking about 2009 or 2000 ice storm levels, but a good amount is definitely coming towards northwest Arkansas and the River Valley in these two waves, one for Wednesday and another coming in Thursday. The one on Wednesday will be a little bit colder, and that's where we have our best chance for ice in the River Valley. But then by Thursday, ice will mix in with some rain in the River Valley. So that may reduce some of our ice totals, but it's a mess across Arkansas. Now, we've probably got the worst impacts, I think, here in the western portion of the state and into eastern Oklahoma. And then everything kind of tilts towards the north and east. North central Arkansas, Mountain Home, Harrison, they'll be getting some ice too. And northeast Arkansas, once you go from Jonesboro northbound to the Missouri state line, the ice starts to go up. Little Rock, though, Hot Springs, ice threats are probably going to be a little bit lower as more rain mixes in. It's got a weather alert. I tell you, it's a crazy week. We had storms last night. We were up to about 2 o'clock, 2:30 or so, watching those storms. We had 2 tornado warnings, one on the floor, one in Johnson County, and then we had a couple severe thunderstorm warnings from LaFleur into Sebastian. We had another one into Logan, parts of Scott County, kind of clipping Johnson County too. It was a mess, and now we're talking about ice. Well, that's how the weather goes around here. So I'm going to log in here and try to look at some of your guys' questions, concerns. Let me know what you guys are thinking, what's on your mind. Pull this up. All right. Let's see. How will travel be Saturday to the Hogs game? That's a good question. We were talking about that in our sports meeting earlier today. They've already canceled a couple things. I'm not the one to ask exactly what they've canceled so far. Jacob and Jonathan have those updates. We'll have those updates tonight at 10 too. But things have been canceled, I know, kind of into Thursday or so. This weekend, we'll just have to see. It just depends on how much ice is still left over. But travel could be a little bit difficult this weekend at first, but then I think over time we'll melt pretty much everything. Faith asks, what about Little Rock? Ice chances are a lot lower. It's not really going to be a big deal, I think, towards the state capitol. Let's see what else. Pea Ridge, I prefer cold, but no ice. There's no way to get around this ice. In Pea Ridge, we're close to about, 0.3 of an inch to 0.2 of an inch of ice. Got to give or take, give a little bit with these numbers, but it's likely to get slick. But in Pea Ridge, especially once you're headed north to almost the Missouri state line, we're going to have a lot of sleet mix in too. Sleet is good. I mean, none of it's really good, but sleet bounces like little ice pellets. It doesn't really produce a glaze that's like an ice rink. It's the freezing rain that produces that ice rink effect, and things are just super slick. Let's see. Van Buren, asking about Van Buren. We've got a mess. It depends on even how north you live in Van Buren. You know, the school district kind of goes pretty large, but when you head towards the north, closer to the foothills of the Boston Mountains, it looks like right now the ice threats will be a little bit higher. In downtown Van Buren, of course, you got the hills. It could get slick. We'll have to watch. 0.2 of an inch of ice, maybe 0.3 of an inch of ice, I think, in Van Buren. Nothing like 2000. 2000, we had about 2 inches of ice or so. I have to look specifically for Van Buren, but in the River Valley, generally we had 2 inches, so we're not going to get that. But my goodness, March is coming in like a lamb. Now, I tell you what, this whole season, February into March, always gets crazy, and then this is our storm. Good question coming in from Lisa. Should we leave our water dripping in Van Buren from tonight till Saturday? If you guys want to chime in on this as well, from what I've picked up on, a lot of it's based on your temperature, and we really watch the frozen pipe issue once we get temperatures to be below 20 degrees for a long time. The icing threat with this is mainly just on the outside, but we're not probably going to freeze the pipes deeply. But if anyone has some insight on when you get freezing rain, because at freezing rain, you're more in the mid and upper 20s. You're not quite to that 20-degree mark. And we're going to stay, even in the overnight hours, we'll probably stay in the mid-20s. So the rule of thumb has been below 20 for at least 6 hours or so is when you've got to be on the lookout. We've been dripping our pipes, it seems like, several times this winter so far. But let me know if you guys have any insight on that. Kansas City, Missouri, they're not going to get a lot of this. And even when I back this up, when we're talking about just rain, ice, and snow and who's going to get, these are the primary impacts. These bands between the pink and green and blue, they'll shift a little bit over time. This map, we're just trying to show you what is the greatest impact. After the storm, what are you going to remember most? In Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley, we're going to remember the ice and sleet the most. In Little Rock, south, remember the rain at most, but then I don't remember because it's just rain. We're not talking about even flooding rain either. Towards the north, Kansas City, once you head about north of, this is kind of just north of the I-44 corridor, so you still got to go quite a bit ways north of Springfield and Joplin, but somewhere between Joplin and Kansas City on I-49, they'll transition over to snow, but this isn't a lot of snow. Most of the activity is in Arkansas, and when that activity comes in, it's coming in as ice, and then eventually those threats will push off towards the north and east. But it looks like so far the greatest ice impacts, woohoo, are over Arkansas. They're right here. So congratulations. Rick says, Garrett, Miss Garrett, don't we all? Garrett and I have been talking through some of these winter storms too. Just what are you seeing, and all that good stuff. I tell you what, winter is a tough time to forecast. You get storms, and then you get this ice and sleet, and we work together on several of these storms coming in. Just so many swings in the forecast, right? So right now, I'll just give you a little bit of a preview of what you can expect on 5 News. We basically, this afternoon, was just meeting after meeting. You guys know how it goes at work, right? But we were talking about meetings on what do you do for coverage, right? We're trying to figure out the best way to let folks know what's happening, what's going to happen. So of course we've got the forecast, but then we also have different ways that we're going to be showcasing the snow and ice as it comes in. So we're going to have Dry 5. We've got our McClarty Daniel Storm Chaser out ready to go. Engineers been looking at, make sure it's good, and it's good to go. Now we'll have our Dry 5 unit out talking about road conditions. That'll be out pretty much all afternoon tomorrow. I'll be in it it'd not be tomorrow morning, it'd be Thursday morning, tracking those ice conditions for Tyler as he's doing the forecast. So your whole weather team is in to talk about the ice and snow as it comes on in. All right, Greenwood, great question. Greenwood, we've got the ice threat, of course. We're in the pink just as much as most of the river valley, but Greenwood, we're right there by about 2/10 of an inch of ice, of course, give and take. But I think tomorrow is your biggest day for icing. That's coming in after the noon hour, and then we'll keep that ice flowing through. By the time we get to Thursday, more rain will mix in, and that'll help cut down. Maybe even the rain may try to melt a little bit of the ice, but then afterwards, it'll just refreeze again. It's just a mess. Every county is different. Every even town in each county. I mean, look at LaFleur County. You go from Big Cedar and even kind of near towards Tallahena, and we're not talking about a lot of ice here, but then you head north to Podo, Heavener, the ice significantly gets a lot, kind of thicker. And then once you get towards the Spiro Mounds, Bocoshi, Panama, even Spiro, Shady Point, the ice will probably be thicker for us. What about Fort Smith? Great question. Fort Smith, much of the same. Couple tenths of an inch of ice coming in, just enough to glaze everything over, and then we'll have a mix of some sleet too at times. It's going to be a mess. Just be on the lookout the next couple of days. Sarah says, I wish it was snow. I wish it was too. Meteorologist Michelle Trotter, if you go back, if you type in Arctic Arkansas, we've got this whole collection of some episodes about winter weather, and she talked about the difference between the sleet and ice. The reason why we're not getting snow out of this system and why the snow is way off towards the north is there's this bubble of warm air above our heads right now. I know it's cold. Gosh, it was cold today. But about 4,000 feet up, so we're just under a mile above our heads, there's this pocket of warm air, and it is sticking there. It does not want to budge. Well, anytime a snowflake falls, it hits that pocket of warm air, and then it melts, and then it hits another pocket of cold air right here at the surface, where we are, we're below freezing, and then it refreezes. And so if it refreezes enough, you get a little sleet pellet that kind of looks like a hailstone. But then if it doesn't quite freeze all the way, it's just a super cooled raindrop, and then once it hits something, it just freezes, just instantly on contact, kind of like an ice rink. And so the atmosphere is so complicated, isn't it? Makes it fun to forecast, but my goodness, gives you a headache too. Stephanie asked, what time should this start for Fort Smith? And then Bobby also asks about Greenwood. Be on the lookout for ice coming in by roughly 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning. You go eastbound to Clarksville, maybe closer to the noon hour. But essentially, everyone is still dry as you're headed out the door tomorrow morning. Sunrise, we're dry. It's going to be cloudy. It's going to be chilly. But eventually, those bands of that frozen precipitation will move in by about 10, 11 o'clock. Now, at first, you may not notice much icing. It takes a little bit for some of the precipitation to really freeze at first. It's kind of like ice cubes. You fill up the ice tray right, and you put it in a cold area, your freezer. Well, it doesn't freeze right away, but it does take a minute. Once it does, it's slick. And so it might be a couple more hours before it really gets slick. But I think the precipitation will move in itself by about 10, 11 o'clock in the Central River Valley, closer to about 11 o'clock, I think, in northwest Arkansas. But then it's here. It's here for the rest of the afternoon, and that's when things will start to get slick. Ozark, probably closer to 11. The farther east you go, it's just going to take a little bit longer to get in. It'll be coming in from southeast Oklahoma first. Let's see. Springdale, Thursday, midday Thursday. So we've been mostly talking about Wednesday, but for Thursday, another round will come in, and that's when the ice rain line may actually start to nudge back north a little bit, and we'll mix in some rain throughout the river valley, south of I-40, south of the Arkansas River. And so that may mess with some of our totals, and that's why you see kind of the drop-off as you head farther south, and then you see a drop-off the farther north you go, because some dry air and also some sleet mixing in with some of those totals, especially northwest Arkansas. Lisa's talking about Tyler's farewell. My goodness, we gave him a crazy last month, right? But that's what we do around here. He's headed to Florida next, so of course hurricane season's crazy, but he'll be on the beach soon. But he's soaking in his last couple winter events for sure. Tyler's been a great resource as well, coming in from the north and tracking these storm systems that have been coming in. We've had a lot of winter weather this month so far. Mount Magazine, Laura asks, Mount Magazine, Kavanaugh Hill, Mount Magazine, Mount Kessler, most of the mountains, That's just a different world, right? You guys know, if you guys live around Mount Magazine or Kavanaugh, Sugarloaf, but higher up, it's likely to get icy, and it'll probably get icy first. It's just a whole different world going up there. We get so many pictures, especially on the top of Kavanaugh. Poteau Chamber of Commerce sometimes sends those in, and then Mount Magazine, some of you guys head up there, and it's just beautiful, right? So make sure if you guys are headed up, just take it easy, take it slow. Sometimes it's hard to see where the ice is, but it's likely to be pretty slick as you're headed up. But my goodness, some of the best photos around here on top of Mount Magazine. Waldron, farther towards the south in Waldron, the ice threats are a lot lower. We're going to have rain mixing in a lot of times, I think, in Scott County, but it's still likely to get slick. Power outage chances, mainly in the darker purple colors. Of course, just the more ice you get, the more power outages tend to be possible because you're just putting more weight on the power lines, and then or more weight on a tree limb that eventually hits the power line. So you kind of got a double whammy there. Sugarloaf top, already icy up there. Yeah, it could be. I mean, we had some freezing drizzle earlier today, so maybe even Kavanaugh and Sugarloaf and Mount Magazine, they may already have a little bit. But let's go ahead and wrap things up. Once again, just winter storms coming on in. You know the forecast around here, it's always super tricky. We're going to be with you every step of the way. Put this up to the side, a little bit more space over here. We'll be with you every step of the way. We'll continue to do these live streams for you. We may try to do another one later this evening, but we'll do one tomorrow morning before this winter storm comes in. We'll have some live streams throughout tomorrow afternoon. Of course, we're live on 5 News itself on Channel 5, and we'll have those updates. We got another update coming in at 10, and we'll be talking more about if there's any changes, any tweaks to this forecast. But really, once you get to this stage, yeah, we talk about accumulations, but we really got to talk about impacts. You know, we don't really remember how much ice always fell, but we remember how many days we lost power, don't we? Remember how many days you were, having to cook certain different foods, or how long it was before you could even get out your door. All those things. That's what we remember. We remember actually seeing things and touching things. Ice is on your car, and you're trying to open up the door, and it won't open because it's frozen shut. Those are the things we remember. And so we're going to continue to focus on those impacts. What is likely as you start your day tomorrow, and you go all the way through the rest of the week. All right, you guys take care. Stay warm. It is cold out there this evening. We've got 20s pretty much area-wide, some low 30s, but a lot of us are in the 20s. So bundle up. Get ready for some icy weather coming on in here very shortly. I got to get some storm snacks coming up to fill here in the Weather Center to be ready to go. But you guys take care. Stay warm. Make sure you keep it local. Keep it with us. Of course, we'll keep you advised. We'll see you guys soon.